This is the 21st season of Bass Talk Live. BTL is presented by Bass Cat Boats, Strike King Lures, Aftco, Pro Guide Batteries, Spro, Gamakatsu, The Bass Tank, Denali Rods, Beatdown Outdoors, and Sunline.
BTL coming at you.
Good morning and welcome to another exciting edition of BTL Bass Talk Live, where we are going to talk about bass fishing. I got to tell you, Frank Scalish was in town for the last 6 days, and it was kind of Groundhog Day. Day after day, we would do a BTL in the morning, except Saturday we're at Lucky Lure Tackle, where I will add, Frank signed the back of all of the FX Color Series Pro Rogues that he designed the color of, and then put them right back on the shelf. So if you are in the Oklahoma City area, you might want to slide in there and see if you can snag a Frank Scalish autographed FX Series rug. But he's currently on the way back to Cleveland, Ohio, and we got absolutely gypped when it came to weather. I learned how to break ice. Our guest today might know how to break ice. I bet he's been out where he's had to break ice. Matt STEFAN joining BTL. I don't think you've been on. Have you been on since we've had our In Fisherman Master Angler Quest, Matt?
No, I don't think so. No, just listening to you talk about your excursion with Frank. That was exactly what I was thinking about, though, is how exhausted I was after 4 days of chasing Master Angler Awards.
Yeah. Which, have you got your Master Angler patch yet? I'm still waiting. With bated breath, waiting every single day. I go and I check it. I say, has the Master Angler certificate or patch come in yet? We need to get on that.
I have not, but I did order my jerseys with a spot for it. So when it comes,
you're going to put it on your 2025 Bassmaster Open jersey?
Dude, it's all about intimidation at the top level. And if I walk in, just in our own household, if I walk in with that and you don't have yours and I have mine, your brain is fried.
Oh, yeah. No, that's intimidation factor. Have you ever broken ice before? So I had never, in Oklahoma, I had never experienced like going to the ramp in the lake. Like a part of the lake was open, but you know, the ramps typically, you know how these small lakes are around here. They're kind of tucked away. So like we would go and there would be anywhere from, we'd take a stick or a big rock or anything, break through right by the dock there, and then pull, and Frank would be like, oh, I know that's 3/4 of an inch. This is going to take some finagling. He's like, I've broken through 3 inches before. And I'm like, oh, okay. So I would have the truck and he would get in the Bass Cat, and he taught me how to break ice at the ramp.
Yeah, I mean, you know, I think if you live a little bit further, I mean, Matt, this shouldn't be all that new to you. You're from Illinois. Like, you get a lot of cold weather there, but
I haven't lived in Illinois since I was 18 years old, Matt.
I mean, it still should be in your roots at that point.
And we have 3 power plant lakes.
If you want to fish here, we got to break ice from like October to May. And then the middle months there, generally if we have 3 inches of ice, you're not breaking it to get a boat out. You're breaking it to drill a hole through.
Well, I think 4 inches is safe ice to walk on. You shouldn't be
4. The guys around here, they were out on 1.5 inches.
Yeah, I feel
I actually sat at my local boat ramp. This was early November, and watched 2 college kids walk out on 1.5 inches ice. It was one of those things. They tied themselves to ropes. They like walked very gingerly. They dragged their stuff out behind them. Like, it was just, the rope had a bunch of different things connected to it, like their buckets and the auger. And I just sat there at the boat ramp, like literally thinking I was going to have to call for help and go out and try to get these guys off the ice. Because the day before, we were launching boats at the same boat ramp, and they went out. Yeah, they went out like probably 100 feet, and then realized what they were doing was wrong and turned around and came back. And they came off the ice, and I was sitting there. I'm like, how much is out there? They're like, well, about 1.5 inches. And I just looked at them. I said, guys, we're launching boats yesterday here. I'm like, you might want to give it a couple more days. And they're like, yeah, we'll be back tomorrow. And I was like, not worth it. Not worth it in my mind.
But so we would take a stick, we would like kind of break up the ice around where the launch was, and then he was like, oh, before he came up, he was like, well, unscrew your tail lights so you don't break them when you put the trailer in. And I was like, well, I've got a Bass Cat fiberglass trailer where they're kind of built in, right? So that's not an option. And he's like, oh yeah, no, up here we have,
Yeah.
And so then we would get it in, and then he would use the trim, and he would trim down, and then he would trim up to break the ice. And then as soon as you got the engine in the water, he would start it. The boat would still be hooked up. I would inch it back, and then he would just give it hell in reverse. And you could see the ice like waving, and then boom, it would break up, and then you'd back in a little bit more. And then I could hear him driving around in it, breaking it up while I parked the truck, which gave me a mini heart attack. But
yeah, it's not a good sound on any boat. It's really not a good sound on an aluminum boat, even though I'd rather do it in an aluminum boat. But that's kind of a loud echo when it happens. Yeah, that's to do what you did is not unusual for me. Like in the late fall when I'm chasing giant smallmouth. I mean, it's kind of a whole set. You just got to be prepared for it. I'll bring so we've got like ice choppers up here to break up ice, not for ice fishing, but like to break it out of your driveway, or like if you've got an ice patch by your house. So I'll bring that with. I bring bags of sand, bags of salt. Like usually breaking the ice is not the hard part. The hard part could be getting the boat back out of the water after the ramp is froze over.
So once he broke it up, it like melted. Because the water was 38, 39, 37 in some cases, but it was pretty interesting. It was a new experience for me. I would not have been fishing had Frank not been here.
Frank is a real man.
He is. And I didn't realize, he's going to kill me for this, the dude's 64 and I know, right? I didn't I've never seen a dude that obsessed with fishing. Still to this day, like there's zero quitting him.
I love it. I love that.
So,
I mean,
we got on him yesterday. We had one good day. We had a couple good days. We had a couple days where I'm going to say it. We went a full day and did not catch a fish. I had one good one on and it came off. We went to 3 different lakes. One of them was frozen. We couldn't get on. It was too thick. One of them, there were 3 footers rolling in and half of the lake was frozen. And then we put on another lake. We got on a lake that where you caught your master angler out of. And we're looking for bass on that. And it just was not happening.
All your lakes are getting destroyed based on you exposing them to the world.
Yeah, no one knows where I am. I'm on, how it is. I'm on 15 different lakes. I'm never on the same lake more than once.
Well, and the cool thing is most of your I don't know if it's a cool thing or not. A lot of the lakes, like I didn't realize Oklahoma had so many little lakes.
Yeah,
like,
I've got
little lakes
20 lakes within an hour and a half of my house.
Yeah. Yeah, I always pictured Oklahoma as like Grand Lake and Eufaula, like giant lakes, but there are little potholes everywhere. And most of those potholes, from what I saw, have good fishable populations of fish in them.
They do. All right, I wanted to get you on. What's that?
I was just going to say, if they get exposed, the bad thing is it doesn't take long to beat those little lakes up.
Yeah, well, there's one guy who kind of likes to expose them. And he's exposed a couple, and we've seen what that's done. So.
Okay.
Well, that's why he doesn't have very many fans in the area. But long story short, I wanted to get you on today. That's a low blow there, but
I would love to dive deeper into that, but I can sense you don't want to go down that path.
No, I mean there's no need to do that. Part of the God, I sound like Randy Blockett now. Part of the mystery, part of the joy is in the mystery of fishing, where you go out and you kind of figure it out, fishery by fishery. Yeah. We experienced that. I did it with Frank. We went to 3 lakes that I'd never been to before. And I put in and I said, they live in here. Let's go figure it out. And the cool thing when you're on a 1,000-acre lake or a 500-acre lake, we put it on one that was like 200 acres maybe, was one of the cool things is you can break down a lake quickly. I think it's really good for developing patterns, figuring out where the fish are on the conditions. You can find the bait that's in that lake. Like it's like everything in a big lake, especially, if it's got a channel running through it and some character to it, where you can spend a day on a lake you've never been to and put together the pattern quickly, which takes you a long time when you're on like a Eufaula or 100,000 acre lake.
The joys of fishing.
It is. I love it. One of the things I wanted to get you on today is, man, I started jonesing for bass tournaments for the first time because they all kicked off this past weekend. You've got guys practicing for the BPT on Conroe this week. You've had a Toyota series that went down. You had a BAM out west. You had a Bassmaster Open on Clark's Hill. And I am nowhere near ready for the Open that's coming up in 2 weeks on Sam Rayburn. But are you kind of in that phase too now where you're getting a little bit excited to hook up the boat and head to the pond for a little casting for cash?
Yeah, I'm ready to roll mentally. I'm really glad that I was not signed up for either of those tournaments because I did not get my boat back from the wrap guy until yesterday. So like I don't have anything in it. I have everything. It's like it's ready to roll, but you know, it would have been I don't know what I would have done if I was scheduled for, say, the first Bass Open. I mean, I don't know if I would have taken a boat without a wrap or what, but it's nice to have another, what do we got? Almost 2 weeks, week and a half at this point to get it ready to go, get down there. I'm also glad we weren't down there for that weather. It'll be nice. It sounds like we're going to have a little bit of a warm front or warmer weather when we're down at Rayburn. So I'm okay with that because not that I don't mind fishing in cold weather. It was more of the travel to get down there. Like the whole country was getting snow. So it would have been like a 4-day trip, I think, which is one of the bummers for winter.
What is your process? So you said you have nothing in the boat. You just got it wrapped. You've been doing this a long time at the highest level of tournament fishing, Matt. I know I struggle with this. I think a lot of the listeners and viewers struggle with this is getting ready for the start of that tournament season. I always have these grand ideas of, boy, this off season, I'm going to have every piece of tackle organized, all my crankbaits. I'm going to go through everything that I don't use. It's going to be immaculate. I'm going to open up my rod box in mid-December and I'm going to say, man, I am ready for February. I'm ready for late January. And inevitably I'm like, holy crap, I've got a week. Yeah. Do you run into that, or is that something that you're pretty meticulous about as far as like getting your things ready? Because I see, like you see on Instagram too, like these guys like, oh, look, I changed all my stuff out. Look at my boat. And I'm like, my God, I wish I was that organized.
Yeah, but I'll tell you, I feel like one thing, if you were to look at most of those guys making those posts, they're all pretty young. Like, so I don't know if it's a matter of them being really excited because it's so new still to them, or if it's a matter of they don't have the responsibilities that you just you get from all over the place as you get older. You know, if you got kids, if you've got families, home ownership, like every year for me, I've gotten further and further away from that to the point where like the stuff, if I showed you my room, it's a disaster in here. Most of that stuff.
Can you move that camera, Matt?
I just lifted my computer.
Can you carry your computer, or is it plugged in?
What are you looking to do?
I want to do a tackle room walkthrough with you. You don't seem thrilled with that.
Holding the computer? Well, I don't know what's laying all over the place. There's stuff I can and cannot show in here.
Oh, you have a bunch of proprietary stuff, don't you?
I mean, there are there's things, whether it's, yes, there are things I can and cannot show right now. And I don't know what,
but like your soft plastics wall. Yes. How many bags of, I see a lot of OG Berkeley back there. I see a lot of Maxent. I see a number of different brands, but a ton of Berkeley stuff back there. Like, how do you determine what goes on that wall, or is that just an accumulation? Like, do you do like hey, this is what I'm going to need for the next year, and then you order it and you do it all at the beginning of the year, or is that just a conglomeration of the last 6 years?
It's a little of everything. If it's for sure baits that I use on a regular basis, those are my replenishments. So if I get home from a tournament, I can grab stuff off the wall and then I can order something, and if it's back ordered, generally I can get through what I have. There's also a lot of stuff on that wall that has been accumulated just based on like, you go to a tournament and they're like, you need a watermelon red flake super fluke. And I'll buy like 6 bags of them or 10 bags or whatever to make sure I have enough. And then I go to the tournament, maybe throw it, maybe don't, come home with 9 bags. And I keep them on the wall because I think I might need them. Then there's stuff on there that I found at like a discount clearance where it was too good of a price where I can't pass it up. And then like the thing is there's more stuff. I've got bins and bins of stuff. And generally that's stuff that's like, that's stuff that probably will never see the light of day unless I'm donating it to like my kid's school, or I give a lot of it away, but I have bins that of what I consider, they're my junk bins at this point. They're stuff that I've tried, I've bought at some point, and just have found them to be useless for me.
So that's stuff that needs to go. So when did you do that? You did a video a while ago where you had those big swim baits and they had the lead inside of them, and then they got opaque around it and they kind of got slimy. Oh, yeah. Like that's what's in the bins, like stuff like that.
Yeah, some of those are in the bin, like just things that I've bought and found not to be productive. For me, they're baits that don't cut it. I've got other options that I prefer, and I'm sure they're probably like some people would look at them and say these are great, but they're just, I only have, you can only make so many casts with so many baits, right? I mean, you can fish with one lure at a time. So I really as I've gotten older, I've tried to pare down a lot of what I do. Like when I turn the camera, there's this corner over here has got a lot of Yamamoto stuff, but most of it is actually old discontinued Yamamoto stuff at this point. Did
you ever go to Gary's store on Toledo Bend?
No. Well, he originally had one. Wasn't it like Pace, Arizona? Is that where it was?
He might have. There was one, I think it was on Toledo Bend. It might still be there. I don't think it is. It's a long time ago, but I went in there and I did the same thing. I bought I still have like a ton of like the 3-inch Slim Cincos and the 4-inch and all that. It was unbelievable. You'd go in there and it was like all old Yamamoto packaging.
Yeah. And with a lot of that stuff too. I mean, Yamamoto's been through a lot of changes, but like, I mean, for me, they were one of the first companies that kind of got me in more of a tournament mode. Like when I was fishing, I mean, I was probably 14-ish at the time, and a lot of the local tournaments. So at that time, my parents had a tiny little weekend 3-season cabin on a tiny little lake in northern Indiana, just outside of Plymouth, Indiana. And we used to go there, and the handful of tournaments in that area were being dominated by the hula grub. So like that was kind of my first introduction to like a bait that was really difficult to get, because there was one tackle shop that had it. They had ordered direct. Like you couldn't get them in the Bass Pro Master catalog. You couldn't get them anywhere except this one tackle shop that was kind of a high-end little local tackle shop, but they had it. And it was, for me, that was a bait that kind of changed a lot of things. So that's what a lot of that too is, like discontinued hula grub colors and like the old packaging, the clear packages that had the label that is just completely worn off at this point.
Do you have any of the old like power worms, like the original power? Yeah. Was there any difference in those, do you think? Like the old power bait stuff compared to the new, or has that stayed pretty much consistent?
So I've never actually had that discussion with like the folks over at Berkeley, just based on opening, say, a new pack of 7-inch power worm, red shad or, tequila sunrise, like the colors that I used to throw when I was a kid too. Those, I don't know that there's any difference. I mean, they still smell the same and everything seems the same to me. I can ask that question of Berkeley and find out more. My assumption is they would say there's not. I do think with respect to some of those older Yamamoto things, I do personally feel like the plastic has changed over the years. Like it used to be, it's just softer overall, a little oilier maybe, but
that was the beautiful thing. He put so much salt and the plastic was so soft. He said, let's make this thing after a big pen. And then if you cast it too hard, it flies off and it costs you $1 to replace it. If you catch a fish, it rips and it costs you. It was basically like fishing with live minnows. You're a one fish per bait type of deal.
Well, and back then, buying those bags of those old Yamis were like, I think they were $6 a pack, and every other plastic out there was like $3. So it was really hard. The only reason we bought them is because we ran into the guy that won a tournament on a lake called Lake Maxinkuckee, and he, after the tournament, was at the tackle shop. And, you know, as a little kid, you're looking up at this guy wearing the patches and just won the tournament. And he's like, this is what you need. And it was the 4-inch hula grub. And then there was I don't know if they still make it. There was like a special hook they designed for the hula grub. I can't remember the exact name. I think it was just the hula grub hook. And we took that, and my dad, he was able to convince my dad to buy a pack or two. And we went to our local lake and caught a pile of fish. And next thing you know, we're putting orders in through Yamamoto's catalog for them. So like, it was pretty much,
that
you just pulled it up.
Well, it was just an interesting name. I just wanted to see how the spelling was on that.
Yeah. Zoom out on it. If you go to I got to go back to this lake.
Where is it? In Indiana?
Yeah. Northern Indiana.
Is that where Culver's
custard started? What I was just going to say to you.
No way. Like the Culver started on Lake.
No. You're talking Culver restaurant. Okay. So hold on.
What are you talking?
So the town of Culver is there.
What state are we in?
This is Indiana, dude.
Okay.
The actual Culver's restaurant, I think, is from Sauk Prairie, Wisconsin.
Oh my God.
Sauk City.
Wealth of knowledge.
But Culver Academy. Do you know Culver Academy?
Oh, they've got
you should know who they are.
Best prep school hockey team. Like, they just fire out USHL, D1, and NHL prospects on the regular.
So they own that whole northern bay. If you look at that whole, like from the central part, scroll to the center part of the lake. That's the northeast corner or northeast corner is all Culver Academy. That's the golf course. Go to the left, zoom in on those big buildings. That's the campus. The campus looks like you're at like an Ivy League school, but this is a high school, right? And their hockey program is off the charts. But as a kid, my dad and I, we'd go walk the shoreline because the whole shoreline was like a park, basically. Like all across that northern bay, those big docks and everything, we would catch walleyes at night and bass. And so that's where I spent a lot of my youth fishing that. But I always was like, man, I would love to go to Culver Academy. The problem
I can see why a Cinco would work. The whole lake is nothing but docks.
Yeah. Oh yeah. It's full of fish. It's a great lake. It's at the time, it wasn't like, you know, you catch giant weights. Winning bag a lot of times is like 14 or 15 pounds. But
I gotcha.
That Culver Academy was just a super cool place because it was just beautiful campus.
Yeah, you got to be pretty talented to play hockey there.
You got to have some money too, because I think last time I looked, I think it was like $55,000 a year to go there. It's like a lot of high end families send their kids there.
Yeah. Holy cow! Yeah, they've got a bunch of guys that have gone there.
I don't know if it's true. I've heard that they generally would play college teams because their hockey team was so good.
Probably. I want to go back to the baits. One thing that was leading to something. So the bait, when I was fishing with the Assumption Bass Club, that they discontinued. Have I told you this before?
I don't know.
The 4-inch black fleck blue tail lizard. The 4-inch lizard. The 4-inch lizard on a 1/4 ounce jig head with a little 1/0 offset worm hook in it in Central Illinois. That was like the goods that I fished with when I was, 15, 16, 17. I would flip that thing everywhere we went. And then they stopped making it.
What happened to lizards? Like, what happened? Nobody throws them. A lot of companies stopped making them.
Did they?
I mean, a lot of companies, they're not every plastic company had a lizard. Not every plastic company has a lizard now. I feel like they're very underutilized myself, especially springtime.
Do you think you get more bites on a lizard than, say, a power hog or a brush hog or a bacon rind or one of those baits. Like if you're dragging an 8-inch mag lizard and a 6-inch brush hog, do you think there are fish at certain times of the year that will eat the lizard more than a creature bait?
Yeah, I don't. I think those baits are pretty comparable if you've got a creature bait and a lizard. But I mean, there's got to be a time and a place where the lizard will outshine other things.
Well, it's got to be spawn, doesn't it?
Well, either the spawn or
like around there.
Do you? I don't know how prevalent like mud puppies are. We've got a lot of lakes that have mud puppies up here, so maybe those would be better for a lizard style bait.
No, mud puppies are not really noted for
you
Oklahoma.
Have them down south?
What would they actually
be
like called?
Newts? Mud puppy. I'm pretty sure that's what they're actually called.
Hold on, let me check.
I feel like we are getting way all over the place today, Matt.
Are there mud puppies in Oklahoma lakes? This is where AI comes into. The common mud puppy is found in eastern North America. Its range extends from Oklahoma and the northern parts of Louisiana, Mississippi, and Alabama in the U.S. to southern Manitoba and Quebec, Canada. These species are absent from coastal areas.
I mean, that's a lot of the country.
Yeah. You're talking this right here.
Yeah, mud puppy.
Yeah. Isn't that what a lot of the old school big bass guys like on Lake Fork and stuff used to like free line or split shot rig to catch the biggest bass?
I believe so. I mean, I know up in my neck of the woods, there are old timers that would swear by throwing mud puppies. There's some lakes where I'll catch them. I shouldn't say on a regular basis, but a lot of times at night. I mean, that Lake Maxinkuckee I was just talking about, a lot of times we'd throw a crawler out at night to try to catch catfish or something while we were fishing for walleye off some of those docks, and we'd catch a lot of mud puppies there. I caught one last spring. I could send you a video. I caught one on the river off my property last year. So I mean, but it's usually
fishing or like by hands.
No, on a night crawler, just fishing.
Yeah, no, you're right though. Lizards used to be. I mean, I still carry the 8-inch zoom mag lizard in pumpkin seed, chartreuse tail.
When was the last time you threw it though?
I remember this. So it would have been 4 years ago. I got on what?
I think it's funny you remember 4 years. It's because you haven't thrown anything except a minnow in the last 4 years.
No, I just got on the minnow this year. I was way late to that party. At Lake Thunderbird in the Wednesday nighter, I caught several fish over 7 pounds on an 8-inch mag lizard, just slow dragging it across spawning areas that you couldn't see the fish because of the watercolor. But it was like the first time I remember it because I was like, holy cow, like that lizard fish, that's badass.
Yeah, I can tell you actually the last time I had a good lizard bite was on Reelfoot Lake in Tennessee in March, and like bringing it through old pad stems, and I put it on almost more as like not a joke, but like I haven't thrown this forever, and it was a black and blue one, and caught some really nice fish doing it.
Reelfoot Lake. So they used to have a Strike King Riders Conference there every year. That is like the most terrifying lake to have a boat on. Yeah,
it's I actually would not recommend taking a fiberglass boat there unless you know exactly where you're going. There's so much sunken rebar, like you'll just be going along. I was actually there in an aluminum boat when I was there with a buddy, and it's solid. It's solid rebar in between all the cypress trees.
Look at the lake. It's absolutely insane.
Yeah.
Like the whole lake is just cypress trees.
Yeah.
It's got a lot of big bass in it. And then
you're looking at the south end. Go up to the north end.
What?
The south
Dear God, this must be during crappie season. Look at all those boats, Matt.
I think it is a pretty good crappie lake.
Look at all those boats.
Yeah.
Those are all vessels.
Master
you
angler
doing
trip
there?
right there.
What were you doing at Reelfoot?
We just were looking for a place that was not too far of a drive. And it was one of those places, for whatever reason, when I used to go to a lot of trade shows, you'd see people talking about, or you'd see like the old school TV shows on Reelfoot. So it always kind of was a lake. I was like, I want to go there if I can, and ended up going.
Yeah, I just looked it up. There's not that many. There's the Zoom Z-Man. Yeah, there's a number of guys that make lizards. Are you going to bring the lizard back at Rayburn in a couple weeks, Matt?
I feel like I should now. I feel like you should too.
I feel like the lizard, like a split shot lizard. How did you fish it? Like, what was it? Just a straight Texas rig, or what was your?
Yeah, usually a Texas rig or a Carolina rig.
Yeah. Now that you think about it, when I first moved to Oklahoma, everybody Carolina rigged either a Gene LaRue Who Daddy or an 8-inch mag lizard.
I mean, I can tell you specifically why I moved away from it. Like when I started fishing a lot of the Wisconsin River area, there's a lot of like overhanging bushes, and like it just is a lot of flipping type water with a lot of bush type cover. And the lizard is not ideal for that. You have way too many appendages that, grab a branch as you're flipping. So like that's when I switched over to a jig and pig more than anything. Like that was back in college years. And ever since then, the lizard has been pretty non-existent except for a few trips. And I got them on the wall just in case. I still have some lizards up there.
I mentioned that split shot rig. Pete said what you just said will flat out catch him anytime. Do you remember when Peter T went on a tear? He won a $250,000 major. I think he won multiple tournaments, and the PD rig obviously is what it was. Like that is a rig that has completely gone away, and all it was a split shot about a foot above a soft plastic with a light wire hook in it. He predominantly used a fluke, but that was a technique that I feel like in the mid 2000s and earlier was a lot of guys had split shot rigs tied on. And I don't think I've thrown one in 10 years.
Well, that was back in the same period of the Mojo rig, which was basically the same thing. Really light cylinder, short Carolina rig, split shot rig type thing. And you don't ever hear anyone doing that either.
I wonder why techniques just go away. Like there's $1 million one on that. Like how does that happen where a technique is hot and then all of a sudden it just phases out? Because I can think of a number of those things.
Yeah, but I think that's normal. You cycle through baits. I think a lot of it, a presentation like that actually it should withstand the test of time because it's so finessey. But I do think it's pretty common to see a bait get hot based on conditions and where the tournaments were, so you see 1 or 2 years where it excels and then it kind of peters off after 2 or 3 more years. And at some point somebody brings it back. But when you're talking finesse presentations, like a split shot rig, the Mojo rig, it's kind of like, it does kind of make you wonder why it's disappeared. But I think the drop shot has had a huge part in that. I think a lot of people have gone to the drop shot over a really light finesse presentation. Although I would kind of say they're not all that similar. I think you could argue that they have a lot of differences that would make a split shot rig still have value in today's fishing world.
Because the other thing of those pre-rigged worms that started out the Westy worm? Like I guess
we had icon worms, we had Little Action Mac, we had
K&E.
Dude, I've won tournaments on those baits back when I was in high school and college.
Did the Cinco and the trick worm replace that?
I mean, I feel like they were around at that time still.
So why did everyone stop throwing those?
I don't know. I mean, I think there's a time and a place for a pre-rigged worm, though. I'll tell you one little tip. If you've got kids and you want to get them into bass fishing, like upgrade them from bluegill to bass, take a pre-rigged worm and on the back of the trailing hook, put a tiny little 1-inch twister tail of like a chartreuse or a different color, and they will catch so many bluegill and perch that are grabbing that last hook that it keeps them really engaged until they catch a bass or two, on the pre-rig. So they're catching a lot of fish, and then every once in a while they'll catch a bass. It's a great thing to get kids, graduate them from bluegill to bass.